Hi, thanks for joining me today. My name's Jo and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in the UK. I'm going to share with you a card today which I made using the Waterfront stamp set. I used these trees here and also I used this Happy Christmas greeting from Snow Wonder. Now this is a card I made several weeks ago for a blog hop, and we had a photograph of a snowy scene, which our theme for the actual hop was sort of winter holidays, that sort of thing. But this picture just drew me in immediately, and I knew I wanted to create my card sort of based on that picture. So the original card has been sent, so I haven't got that to show you, but I will show you obviously the steps that I did to make it, so that you can see how easy it is really. So I used a Night of Navy base card. Now this one is I'm in the UK, so this is a standard C6 A6 card. So it is our full A4 length, which is 29.75 by 10.5 centimeters, and it's scored at 14.85 to give us our card base. I then have a piece of silver foil. Now this is a centimetre smaller than our card front, so this one measures 13.85 by 9.5. And then a piece of balmy blue cardstock, and this is just 0.5 centimetre smaller than our foil, so this one measures 13.35 by 9 centimetres. So the card itself was a very sort of dramatic sky, which is what I was trying to recreate, and I think that has what has drawn people in, and also the fact that the actual trees themselves look a bit 3D. So I'm going to show you how I did that. So first of all, what I want to do is to create my sky. So I'm using Misty Moonlight, and I'm also using Night of Navy. Now these two are really good for night skies because they blend so well together. And I have a separate sponge for each one, and I'm just going to sponge the sky. So I'm going to start off with Misty Moonlight. So this is just a normal stamping sponge. So I'm going to pick up some ink, and what I want to do is to create my sky. It's going to go dark and it's going to get lighter as it goes across, and I also want to leave some space for a hill. So what I'm going to do is pick up some Night of Navy and just start bringing this into my card. Now these sponges are quite well seasoned because I've been using them throughout the winter season to make sort of night skies and stuff. So if you've got a brand new sponge, you might just want to sort of really ink it up and give it a really good sort of, get it nicely seasoned so it's got a lot of nice colour on it. So I'm starting off darker here, as I say, and then I'm bearing in mind I want a sort of a bit of a hill here, so I'm not going too far down the card, probably about 2/3 I would say. So I'm bringing this colour in, but I want to add a little bit onto this side, but not too much, because I'm going to be bringing in some sort of really dramatic sort of white sort of clouds here. So as I say, I'm just adding Misty Moonlight, and I want it quite patchy as well because this is a sky, so I don't want it to be a mass of colour. I want it to be reasonably patchy on here. Just build up a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a moment. I might come back in a moment once I've added my navy, just to sort of blend them together a little bit more. So this is my Night of Navy. So I want this area to be really quite dark, so I want to lay down quite a lot of the colour, but making sure it blends really, really nicely. And especially in this top corner, I want this to be the darkest sort of area on my cards. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit more of the Misty Moonlight. And as I say, don't worry if it is a little bit patchy. We want it to be patchy because this is a sky, so don't worry too much. Again, just adding a little bit more of the Night of Navy just to this top area here. Okay, so I'm quite happy with the blue for the moment. I say I might come back in a while if I feel that my colour needs to be lifted slightly. So I'm just going to quickly clean any ink off my desk, because the next colour I'm going to bring in is actually white, so I didn't want to sort of mix up my sponges too much. So this is our Whisper White pigment ink. This is a fairly new pad, so it's not particularly well inked at the moment because these come to you without any ink on them. So I'm just going to add a little bit more. I tend not to ink the whole pad. I tend to sort of work in a sort of smallish area and add as I go. It's got a chalky base, so it naturally dries out a lot easier than our normal pigment inks would. So bear that in mind. I tend to, as I say, not use too much at any one time. So I'm going to switch this round because I want to bring in some clouds and some sky here. Now, when you lay this down, as I say, it's got a creamy sort of feel to it, and as you blend it, you'll find that any sort of little streaks and everything that appear when you first lay it down will just blend in. So as I say, now I can sort of see where I'm going. I'm going to turn it back the other way. So I want this to be quite light here, and I want it to sort of blend into the dark area. Okay, so now I've done that, I'm just going to come in with my Misty Moonlight again and just add a little bit more of that to certain areas. And again, I want it to be reasonably patchy because you want this to be quite a dramatic sort of sky that's going on. And then I'm going to add a little bit more white again. And you're just going to literally just build these up until you're happy that the tones all flow together. Now, I also need to add in a hill here. So it's quite a good idea to actually do it at this point, because your sky will take on a completely different look at that point. So again, I'm just picking up some of this ink. And this is sort of a snowy hill, so it's not going to naturally follow any particular shape. It's just going to be sort of where the snow's fallen, really. And also with this ink, it will dry and it will lighten slightly, and you might see some more of the blue coming through. So if that happens, then you can just add another layer. Also be careful touching it like I did there, because you will pick the chalkiness up on your fingers. So just be a little bit careful of where you're touching. It's quite difficult when you're trying to obviously create your base. So I think you can see that the sky sort of takes on a slightly different effect once that snowy hill is done. So I'm going to move that to one side. I might need to come back and pop another layer on there in a moment, but I'll just see how it goes. I'm just going to quickly wipe my fingers. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to bring in our trees. So as I say, these are from the Waterfront stamp set, and they are I wanted to use some smallish trees, but I didn't want the actual trunk of the tree in this. I wanted it to be just these treetops here. So what I did was really quite sort of, there was no real, what's the word I'm looking for, sort of process I went through. It was quite random because I was building this up as I went, really. I was kind of making it up as I went along. So I'm going to take a post-it note and I'm going to pop, I've got two there. So I just want to pop it down. I don't need to stick it down properly. It's just literally something I'm going to use to stamp over. So I'm going to start off with making sure that my trunks are on my post-it note, but also my trees are going to appear in the snow. So I don't want them to be sort of floating in the sky. So that's my first stamp, and rather than re-ink it, I'm just going to move it along slightly and just add some more. Okay, I'm going to do that again and again. I'm just going to bring these ones forward slightly. Okay, and move it along, just filling up any gaps really. Okay, and this one I'm going to move slightly backwards, and then I'm going to move ones forward a little bit. So you can see by doing those sort of backwards and forwards, you get the different depths. Now you do sometimes get a bit of a ghosting sort of going on with when you do your second generation stamp, because obviously it's not fully inked. But I think this will add to it as time goes on. You'll see as I add more trees to it. So that was Light of Navy. The other colour I used was Basic Grey. Now Basic Grey is quite dark at first generation, so I always use this as second generation. You can see it is really quite dark. So I'm just going to stamp off, and anywhere that I feel needs some more trees, I'm going to add some more. Now I need a little bit more height there, so I'm just going to bring those up at the back. That's it. And again, just anywhere you feel that needs some more trees, you can add those in. Okay, so this is what gives it that 3D effect, because you've got trees at the front and you've got trees sort of going backwards as well. So that's done in Basic Grey. So I'm just going to clean off my stamp. Now the next thing I want to do is to add some of our shimmer trees. So this is our Frost White shimmer paint. This is great for all sorts of techniques, but I particularly use this technique because I wanted to give it that that shimmer, but in the shape of the trees, if that makes sense. So it looks like there's sort of snow on it really. So this is just an old paintbrush I've got here. Make sure you use an old one. And I'm just going to pick up some of this shimmer paint and literally just paint it onto my stamp. Now I don't need to sort of be very precise about this. I can literally just paint it on. I just want to get a nice thin sort of layer, but not too thin because otherwise it kind of disappears. Okay, so now I've done that, I'm just going to again just get my post-it note here, and I'm going to stamp some of these over the top. Now I don't know how well these are going to show up on the camera because they do look really shimmery in real life, but I think sometimes the camera doesn't always pick it up. So again, I'm just going to place my post-it note. As you can see, I'm not actually sticking my post-it note down at all. I'm literally just holding it over. Now, I think you probably can see these ones here. Now these are obviously at the front, but because of the way they shimmer, they look like sort of snowy sort of effect on them, which I think is really pretty. So again, I'm just going to take one last painting. Now when you do this, do make sure that you wash your stamp afterwards, because although it doesn't harm your stamps, it will obviously dry, and then it's going to be difficult to get the paint off. Okay, so that's that done. I'm just going to quickly clean that the best I can, and then I'll wash it under a tap in a second. Now what I want to do, I can see that this white has lightened slightly. Can you see how these ghostings, I think they're really beautiful, because I think that adds to the sort of texture of the whole thing. So again, I'm just going to add a little bit more white. And I don't want to get rid of those ghostings. I want them to stay there. So I'm just going to work sort of round them really. I might go over sort of very lightly, but I don't want to lose them. So you see, I'm just working round them. Okay, and then if if I feel that I need a little bit more mossily sort of in the sky, you can just sort of dab some on and rub it in. It sort of looks like a snowy sort of sky, really. Okay, so now that that part is done, I want everything to sort of dry as much as it can, really. So I'm not going to sort of try and touch it too much at this stage. But what I do want to do is I want to add some sort of snow shimmery in the background. So I'm using the same brush that I painted my actual trees with. I'm just going to pick up some ink. Now, you do need to sort of be a little bit careful because you have little control over this. But I'm just going to tap, and you want some big blobs and some little blobs. Just tap it off a little bit in your pot first so you don't get any really, really big blobs. So then you get a really nice sort of background. It looks like you've got snowflakes coming in front of the trees, and it just all looks really nice together. Okay, so I'm just going to lift that very carefully. As I say, normally if I was making this in normal time, I would obviously just allow that to dry very slightly. Especially these bigger blobs, they can take a little bit more drying, really. So then I just want to add my greeting. So this is from the Snow Wonder stamp set. This has got some quite nice sort of scripty sort of greetings in it, but we're just going to be using this Happy Christmas here. And I'm doing this in Night of Navy. So I'm just picking up my ink, just making sure that I've got a nice covering. I'm going to stamp that straight onto that bottom section there. Now obviously my ink was still a little bit wet, so I needed to be a little bit careful, but you might find it easier to do your greeting before you actually do the splatters. Okay, so now that that's done, I need to put my card together. As I say, I need to be a little bit careful because obviously this is still wet, but I'm going to very carefully just glue onto the reverse. And this is onto my silver foil. And then again onto my card base here. Just being very careful where I touch. There we go. So once that's had a chance to dry, then obviously I will stick it down a little bit better than it is at the moment, but you can see that is the card finished. So it is actually surprisingly quick, surprisingly easy, and really good fun to make. So I hope you'll give it a go, and thanks for the interest, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.